That's the interesting point, I think, in all of this, and maybe we can wrap up on that point, is, if this Senate were constituted properly, the way you say it was designed to be, and the way it's, on a simple reading of the Constitution, it obviously was designed. If it were really done that way, how would the country really be different? Because as long as I can remember, Vince, federal politics, national politics, always comes down to confrontation and imposition. Now, I'm from Alberta. I don't know that it would be that much different in Quebec. I don't know if it would really be that much different in any part of the country. That Ottawa sort of figures out what it can get away with, and then it imposes it on that region. And usually to the detriment of the interests of people in Alberta, often to the detriment of interests of people elsewhere as provinces. Now, how would this change if you had the structure that you say is supposed to be there?
Well, it would, with the balance of powers in the Senate and the House of Commons, you have to have an arbitrator to conciliate the interests of both houses.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, and as it was meant to be, the Governor General would hold the balance of power. And the negotiation, he would facilitate the negotiations of the conciliation of the unity and the diversity of Canada, based on the legitimate constitutional interests of the people. Now, all this sounds very theoretical, but bottom line is the government would have to act according to the well-understood wishes and interests of the people.
Yeah, but in which region? That's what we in Alberta always ask ourselves is, okay, well, if that's, they'll operate in the interests of the people, but which people?
Us. I don't know. I don't understand what
You're
you're saying.
saying all the people, but I'm always hearing this, that, okay, well, that means that Alberta will then be represented by how many? 6 senators, and yet 6 senators out of 103, I think it is. So how are our interests protected at all in this? Like you're saying, in the interests of all the people, but don't those interests always collide? Like the national policy to protect Ontario and to some degree Quebec manufacturing. That was done at the direct cost of the Atlantic provinces. Now, with a real Senate, such as you're describing, how would that have been avoided, or should it have been avoided?
Well, first of all, you're talking about 6 senators. Okay, well, bottom line, the system of government, if it was properly instituted, there'd be continual negotiations such that the legitimate constitutional rights of the people would be upheld. Now, there would normally have been, over the years, admission by the people's representatives that Alberta is allowed to have more than 6 senators, that 6 senators do not actually represent the people of Alberta in the Senate. There would be negotiations based on the obligation to respect the legitimate interests of the people. So forget the 6 senators, that would not be the case.
It would have developed over time.
It would have developed over time, and if you did institute this system, it would, like I said, there'd be a balance such that the legitimate constitutional interests of the people would be respected.
The way you're describing this, Vince, is that it's a long trading session.
That's what it is,
goes
exactly.
on and on
Exactly.
and on. Is there not enough trading going on in our system?
No, you don't have. You have what we have. We have the Council of the Federation, where you have like the prime ministers of each province that meet every once in a while to get together.
They write up a list of how much money they want.
Yeah, and do a photo walk or whatever.
Send the bill to Ottawa.
Yeah,
never gets paid.
If the provinces or the political parties were proportionally represented, the provincial political parties were proportionally represented in the Senate, these people would be negotiating all the time.
Directly.
Among each other.
Yeah, at the national level, directly.
In the Senate.
Yeah.
They'd be negotiating, conciliating their interests, because, they have to form majorities, and they have to form a kind of a consensus in the Senate to be able to have an influence in the government, you might say. And this consensus will always be in flux, they have provinces supporting each other in certain issues, and provinces who disagree in certain issues, and finally, when you have the priorities come to the surface, and the people representing those priorities get together and basically advise, or they represent these interests in the government of Canada. And so, because the Senate and the House of Commons are equal, And because every law has to have the approval of the Senate and the House of Commons, if the provinces and the Senate got their heads together, well, they'd be able to stop federal intrusion in provincial jurisdictions. They'd be able to, prevent the federal government from taxing and spending on whatever they want. These interests are similar to, I think, in all the provinces. They want to
Well, I
manage
was
their
going to
own
ask you
affairs.
about that, Vince, because, we get to this question, and there's a lot of cynicism on this point, or, if you like, disappointment on this point in a number of the western provinces, and I suspect in Ontario, where it seems to us increasingly that simply the interests of the smaller provinces, or the have-not provinces, or as I like to think of them, the want-more provinces, that their sole federal interest now is to get more money out of the federal treasury from the richer areas. You don't. I take it you don't think that's actually necessarily a built-in reality, that over time, if you did it right, they would actually understand their provincial interest to be to keep Ottawa as small as possible. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. My belief is that all politicians are the same. They want the power to govern. They want the power to do good, but they want the power to, realize themselves, to realize their principles and what they think they can do for their province. And I think it's naturally bred instinct in man to want to have the power to express themselves, to realize their objectives. So I think if you put the provinces in the Senate, the result will be to decentralize the federal government, and then each province will manage its own affairs as he wishes.
But only as long as they're not elected. You say that's actually quite important.
Yeah, well,
probably.
my opinion is that elected senator will be no different from an elected deputy in the House of Commons.
Well, you may well be right.